The courtroom buzzed with an undercurrent of tension, a palpable atmosphere that felt heavy in the air. Officer David Carter, a white police officer renowned for his impressive record of incarcerating black men, took the stand with an air of confidence. Today he was about to testify against Marcus Brown, an innocent black man caught in a web of deceit and systemic injustice. Marcus, a 28-year-old man with no criminal record, found himself facing serious drug trafficking charges. The prosecution had built their case around what appeared to be a rock-solid collection of evidence: a kilo of uncut cocaine allegedly discovered in his vehicle's trunk, grainy surveillance footage that supposedly depicted him in a drug deal, and most damningly, the testimony of Officer Carter. This officer was not just any cop. He was the one whose words alone had sealed countless convictions, instilling fear in defense attorneys across the city. On the other side of the courtroom sat Benjamin Wells, Marcus's defense attorney. Benjamin had once been a prosecutor, fervently believing in the ideals of justice and the legal system. However, over the years he had witnessed too many innocent lives shattered by dishonesty and corruption. Disillusioned, he had switched sides, dedicating himself to defending those who had been wronged by a flawed system. Today he was ready to fight for Marcus, armed with a determination to expose the truth. As Officer Carter entered the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. He walked with a swagger, adjusting his badge and casting a smug glance around the room. Benjamin observed carefully, his expression calm but his mind racing. The prosecution, led by the ambitious attorney Sarah Mitchell, prepared to launch their case. With every passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and the tension in the room thickened, as the shadows of injustice loomed large. As the audience watched closely, some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, whispering among themselves about the implications of the trial. Others leaned forward, eager to witness the unfolding drama, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. In the backdrop of this charged environment, Benjamin steeled himself for the battle ahead. He knew that today was not just about Marcus. It was about challenging a system that had long favored power over truth. If you find this story compelling, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for more engaging content from Flourishing Tales. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. As the trial commenced, Benjamin Wells sat at the defense table, his hands clasped tightly together, his mind racing with strategies he had meticulously crafted over the past several months. Across from him, Sarah Mitchell, the young and ambitious prosecutor, positioned herself confidently at the front of the courtroom, ready to present her case against Marcus Brown. As the proceedings began, Sarah called Officer David Carter to the stand. With a self-assured smile, Carter took his place, scanning the jury with an air of authority. He had done this countless times before, and he knew the drill. The jury was already predisposed to trust him, a seasoned officer with a spotless record, and he thrived on that confidence. "Officer Carter," Sarah began, her voice steady and clear, "please recount the events of the night in question." Carter leaned forward slightly, his demeanor relaxed as he began to narrate the events from his perspective. "On the night of March 4th, we had been monitoring a known drug trafficking area for several weeks," he stated. "I observed Mr. Brown's vehicle parked outside a location notorious for drug activity. Based on our surveillance and prior intelligence, I approached the vehicle and asked him to step out. During a routine search, I discovered a kilo of cocaine in the trunk." The words hung in the air, and Benjamin could almost feel the shift in the atmosphere. The jury didn't need to hear anything else. They had a black man, a bag of drugs, and a trusted white officer presenting a damning account. He could sense the weight of their assumptions, the invisible chains of bias that bound them to the narrative being spun by the prosecution. Benjamin remained composed, waiting patiently for the right moment to interject. He knew that the success of his defense hinged on dismantling Carter's credibility. As Sarah continued her questioning, Benjamin mentally prepared himself for the challenge ahead. "Officer Carter, are you absolutely certain that the drugs belong to the defendant?" Sarah pressed. "Without a doubt," Carter replied confidently, his eyes narrowing slightly as he looked at Marcus, who sat rigidly at the defense table. Feeling the moment had arrived, Benjamin stood up, Adjusting his suit jacket, he approached the witness stand, his demeanor calm and collected. "Officer Carter," he began, "you've been in law enforcement for how many years now?" 17 years, Carter responded, a smirk playing on his lips. "And in those 17 years, how many drug-related arrests have you made?" Benjamin asked, his gaze unwavering. "Hundreds," Carter replied without hesitation, clearly proud of his record. Benjamin nodded thoughtfully. "Hundreds? And how many of those cases involved black defendants?" he inquired, his voice steady. The room tensed, and Carter's expression momentarily faltered. Sarah jumped to his defense. "Objection. Irrelevant." Benjamin turned to the judge, a man known for his bias toward the prosecution. "Your Honor, I'm establishing a pattern," he insisted. The judge sighed, clearly annoyed, but finally waved his hand, allowing Benjamin to continue. "Officer Carter," Benjamin pressed, "you don't have the numbers, do you?" Carter exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. "I arrest criminals. Race has nothing to do with it," he stated defiantly, trying to regain control. "Really?" Benjamin replied, reaching into his briefcase. He pulled out a thick manila folder, labeled Internal Affairs Report, letting it rest in his hands for a moment, ensuring the jury could see it. "This is an internal affairs report filed by an anonymous officer in your department. It details multiple allegations of evidence tampering linked to your cases." Carter's confidence began to waver as he interrupted. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Benjamin shot back. "Then tell me, Officer Carter, why does your name appear in 5 different wrongful conviction appeals? Why have you never lost a case, even when key evidence was missing? Why has every single case you've testified in resulted in a guilty verdict?" The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the weight of Benjamin's questions settled in. For the first time, Carter looked uncertain. He glanced toward the judge, seeking support, but found none. The jury was now fully engaged, their previous assumptions beginning to crack under the pressure of Benjamin's probing. "Let's discuss the night of Marcus Brown's arrest," Benjamin said, his tone shifting to one of calculated scrutiny. "Where is your body camera footage from that night?" Carter hesitated, his composure faltering. "It malfunctioned," he stammered. "Malfunctioned," Benjamin repeated, allowing the word to linger in the air. "How convenient." Carter's jaw clenched, and Benjamin could sense the growing unease in the courtroom. He took a step back, pulling out a remote control. "Well, Officer Carter, I have some footage that did not malfunction." He turned toward the TV monitor at the front of the courtroom and pressed a button. The screen flickered to life, displaying security footage from a gas station. The video was grainy, but clear enough to show Marcus pumping gas at the exact time Carter claimed he was involved in a drug deal. A hush fell over the courtroom, the atmosphere shifting from one of confidence in the prosecution to a palpable sense of doubt. For the first time in 17 years, Officer Carter appeared vulnerable. Benjamin turned off the screen and faced Carter directly. "Officer," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you testified under oath that you personally witnessed my client engaging in a drug transaction at 9:45 p.m. on the night of March 4th. Correct?" Carter crossed his arms, trying to maintain his facade of confidence. "That's right." Benjamin motioned to the now dark screen. "Yet, as you can see, at that exact time, my client was miles away at a gas station. How did you see him making a drug deal from that distance?" The tension in the room thickened as the jury's expressions shifted from certainty to confusion. Carter didn't flinch. "Maybe the timestamp on the video is wrong," he replied smoothly, attempting to deflect. "Or maybe your client drove there after he made the deal. Either way, that doesn't change the fact that we found a kilo of cocaine in his trunk," he added, trying to regain control of the narrative. Benjamin nodded as if considering Carter's point. He glanced at Marcus, who sat stiffly, his hands clenched in tension. Benjamin knew the weight of this moment, the injustice Marcus had faced, the countless lives affected by officers like Carter. "I'm glad you brought that up," Benjamin said, his voice steady. "Because I have a question about that so-called discovery." He pulled out another document from his briefcase, holding it up for the jury to see. According to the official search report, you stated that you found the drugs in the trunk of Marcus Brown's car after a lawful search. That's correct, Carter replied confidently. Yet the inventory log, which you signed, states that the bag of cocaine was sealed and tagged at precisely 10:15 p.m. that night. He paused for effect, but according to Officer Derek Williams' testimony, your partner that night, the search didn't happen until 10:40 p.m. How did you document evidence 25 minutes before you even found it? The courtroom erupted in whispers as the implications of Benjamin's questions began to sink in. The judge leaned forward, clearly troubled by the growing evidence against Carter. Even Sarah Mitchell appeared momentarily shaken, her earlier confidence wavering. I don't know what you're trying to pull here, Wells, but Carter began, but Benjamin interrupted. I'm trying to uncover the truth, officer, he said, his voice sharp and unwavering, because the only explanation for this discrepancy is fabrication. You filed a report before you even found the evidence because the evidence didn't exist until you put it there. Objection, Sarah shouted from her seat, her voice cracking slightly. The defense is making baseless accusations. Benjamin turned toward her, his expression resolute. Baseless. Your Honor, I just presented a clear timeline that contradicts the officer's sworn statement. If the prosecution would like to explain how evidence can be logged before it's even discovered, I'm more than willing to listen. The judge hesitated, glancing at Sarah, who was left speechless. The tension in the room mounted as everyone awaited the judge's decision. After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally turned back to Carter. Tell me, officer, Benjamin continued, lowering his voice to draw in the jury. In your 17 years of making drug arrests, how many times have you discovered evidence before actually searching for it? Carter fell silent, and Benjamin took a step closer, his voice almost a whisper. And how many times have you gotten away with it? A ripple of astonishment spread through the courtroom, as the audience began to realize the weight of what was unfolding. This was no longer just about Marcus. It was about a system that had allowed corruption to thrive for far too long. With the momentum shifting, Benjamin pressed on. One last question. When you pulled my client over, you claimed his car had a broken taillight, which gave you probable cause to conduct a search. Correct? That's right, Carter affirmed, though uncertainty crept into his tone. Benjamin reached into his briefcase one last time, pulling out a traffic camera photo that showed Marcus's car with fully functional taillights, time-stamped just minutes before the arrest. He handed the photo to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge for the jury to see. The evidence was clear, and the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically as the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Benjamin stepped back, allowing the gravity of the moment to sink in. The jury's expression shifted from doubt to outrage, and murmurs rippled through the gallery as spectators exchanged incredulous looks. The judge, who had been dismissive of Benjamin earlier, now appeared visibly unsettled as he processed the implications of the newfound evidence. As the tension mounted, Benjamin could feel the tide turning in favor of justice. He had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, fighting against a system that had long favored the powerful, and now it seemed the truth was finally coming to light. If you're feeling inspired by this unfolding story, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section below, and stay tuned for more compelling narratives from Flourishing Tales. As the courtroom settled into an uneasy silence, Benjamin Wells could sense the shift in the atmosphere. The tension was palpable, with everyone on edge, waiting to see how Officer David Carter would respond to the damning evidence Benjamin had just presented. The security footage showing Marcus pumping gas at the time of the alleged drug deal hung over the proceedings like a dark cloud, casting doubt on Carter's testimony. Benjamin took a deep breath, mentally preparing himself for the next phase of his cross-examination. He knew that the stakes had never been higher. This was not just about Marcus Brown's freedom. It was about exposing a corrupt system that had wronged too many innocent lives. Officer Carter, Benjamin began again, his voice steady but laced with intensity. You testified earlier that you personally witnessed my client engaging in a drug transaction at 9:45 p.m. on March 4th. Is that correct? Carter crossed his arms defensively, his brow furrowing. "That's correct," he replied, attempting to maintain his composure. "But the footage clearly shows that at that exact time, Marcus was not at the location you claimed. He was at a gas station more than 5 miles away." Benjamin pressed, his tone firm. "How do you explain this discrepancy?" Carter shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his arrogance beginning to falter. "Maybe the video is wrong," he retorted, his voice lacking conviction. "Or maybe he made the deal and then drove to the gas station afterward. That doesn't change the fact that we found drugs in his trunk." Benjamin raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Really, officer? So you're suggesting that my client, knowing he was being watched, would engage in a drug deal and then casually drive several miles away to pump gas? That seems highly improbable, don't you think?" The jury exchanged glances, the skepticism growing as Benjamin continued to dismantle Carter's argument. He could see the doubt creeping into their minds, and he pressed forward, determined to capitalize on the moment. "Let's talk about the drugs that were supposedly found in Marcus's vehicle," Benjamin said, his voice calm yet commanding. "You claimed that a kilo of cocaine was discovered during a lawful search of his car. Is this true?" Carter nodded, but Benjamin could see the subtle shift in his expression, a flicker of uncertainty beneath his bravado. "Yes, that's correct." "Interesting," Benjamin replied, pulling out the inventory log from earlier. "According to your own documentation, you stated that the drugs were sealed and tagged at 10:15 p.m. But your partner, Officer Derek Williams, testified that the search didn't take place until 10:40 p.m. How could you possibly document evidence before it even existed?" The courtroom erupted in murmurs, the gravity of Benjamin's questioning hanging heavily in the air. The judge's gavel struck down, silencing the crowd. But the tension remained thick. Carter's face darkened, anger bubbling beneath the surface, as he struggled to maintain his composure. "I don't know what you're trying to do here, Wells, but you're twisting the facts," Carter snapped, his voice rising defensively. Benjamin stepped closer to the stand, his demeanor unwavering. "No, officer. I'm simply trying to uncover the truth. The evidence suggests that you fabricated the timeline to cover up your misconduct. You filed a report before you even conducted the search, because the drugs were never there to begin with." Carter's jaw clenched, and Benjamin could see the cracks in his facade widening. The pressure was mounting, and it was clear that Carter was losing control of the narrative. "Isn't it true that you have a history of questionable conduct?" Benjamin continued, refusing to relent. "You've been involved in multiple cases where evidence tampering was alleged, yet you've always managed to evade accountability. Why is that?" The jury leaned forward, intrigued by Benjamin's line of questioning. The murmurs intensified, and Benjamin could feel the tide turning. The power dynamic in the courtroom was shifting, and he knew he had to keep the momentum. "Today we're not just here to defend Marcus Brown. We're here to challenge a system that allows officers like you to operate with impunity," Benjamin declared, his voice rising with passion. "We're here to ensure that justice is not just a word but a reality for every citizen, regardless of the color of their skin." The gallery erupted in applause, a wave of support for Benjamin and Marcus that echoed off the courtroom walls. The judge quickly banged his gavel, restoring order, but the energy in the room was palpable. Benjamin could see the jury's resolve hardening, their expressions reflecting a newfound determination to seek the truth. "Let's return to the night of the arrest," Benjamin continued, pivoting back to the incident in question. "You claimed that you stopped Marcus for a broken taillight, which provided you with the probable cause to search his vehicle. Is that correct?" "Absolutely," Carter answered, albeit with a hint of hesitation. Benjamin pulled out the traffic camera photo he had introduced earlier, displaying it prominently. However, this photo clearly shows that Marcus's taillights were functioning perfectly at the time of the stop. "So tell me, Officer Carter, was there really probable cause for that stop?" Carter's face flushed with anger, his composure cracking further. There must have been some confusion," he stammered. "Confusion?" Benjamin echoed. "This isn't just confusion. This is a pattern of deceit. You've built a case on lies, and it's time for the truth to surface." The jury shifted in their seats, visibly impacted by Benjamin's words. Benjamin took a deep breath, sensing that he was on the cusp of a breakthrough. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, and he knew he had to drive his point home. In your 17 years of service, how many times have you made arrests based solely on assumptions rather than facts? Benjamin asked, leaning closer. How many innocent lives have been destroyed because of your negligence? The courtroom fell silent as everyone processed Benjamin's question. Carter's bravado had completely disintegrated, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. The jury was no longer just listening. They were questioning everything they thought they knew. Today, we have the power to change the narrative, Benjamin said, his voice ringing with conviction. We have the opportunity to hold those in power accountable and ensure that justice prevails. I ask you to consider what it means to stand up for what is right, to challenge the status quo, and to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. As he stepped back, the weight of his words hung heavy in the air, resonating with everyone present. He could see the jury's expressions shifting, their resolve strengthening as they contemplated the implications of Carter's actions. If you feel inspired by this story of courage and justice, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more powerful narratives from Flourishing Tales. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric, charged with anticipation as Benjamin Wells prepared to deliver the final blows to Officer David Carter's credibility. The tension was thick, and the jury was hanging on every word, their expressions a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Benjamin could sense that the tide was turning in their favor, and he was determined to capitalize on this momentum. Officer Carter, Benjamin began again, his voice steady yet commanding. We've established that your testimony is riddled with inconsistencies. The video footage showing Marcus pumping gas at the time of the alleged drug deal contradicts your account, but let's delve deeper into your past, shall we? With that, Benjamin pulled out a stack of documents from his briefcase. The papers were filled with records of previous cases involving Carter, cases that had raised eyebrows and prompted internal investigations. These documents contain multiple allegations of misconduct against you, including evidence tampering and coercive tactics used to secure convictions. How do you explain these discrepancies? Carter's face paled, and the confidence he had exuded just moments ago quickly dissipated. Those are just accusations, he protested weakly, attempting to regain some semblance of control. Accusations backed by evidence, officer, Benjamin countered, his tone unwavering. Many of these cases were later overturned due to your questionable practices. You've built a career on the backs of innocent people. How does that make you feel? The courtroom was silent. The weight of Benjamin's words hung in the air, and the jury shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They were no longer just spectators. They were witnesses to a reckoning. Benjamin could see that the jury was considering the implications of Carter's actions, their expressions shifting from doubt to outrage. Let's discuss the drugs found in Marcus's car again, Benjamin continued, pressing the advantage. You claim to have discovered a kilo of cocaine during a lawful search, but we know that your search was based on a fabricated reason, an alleged broken taillight that never existed. Isn't it true that you had no probable cause to stop Marcus in the first place? Carter's jaw tightened as he struggled to maintain his composure. I did what I had to do to protect the community, he insisted, but his voice lacked the conviction it once had. Protect the community? Benjamin echoed incredulously. Or protect your own reputation? You've manipulated evidence and twisted the truth to further your own agenda. And today that ends. Just as Benjamin was about to press further, the courtroom doors swung open with a loud bang, drawing everyone's attention. Two men in dark suits strode in, their presence commanding immediate respect. The emblem on their badges gleamed under the courtroom lights. FBI agents. The taller of the two stepped forward, his expression serious. Officer David Carter, he announced, holding up a folded document. We have a warrant for your arrest. Gasps rippled through the gallery as Carter's face drained of color. He looked stunned, as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath him. For the first time since entering the courtroom, he appeared vulnerable and afraid. The judge, who had been watching the proceedings with a furrowed brow, looked equally taken aback. On what charges? Carter stammered, his bravado completely shattered. "You are being charged with evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, perjury, and multiple violations of civil rights under federal law," the agent replied, his voice unwavering. The atmosphere shifted again. This time it was electric, with a sense of justice finally being served. The gallery erupted into whispers, a mix of disbelief and excitement. Benjamin stood tall, a sense of triumph swelling within him as he witnessed the moment of accountability unfolding right before his eyes. As the FBI agents approached Carter to place him in handcuffs, Benjamin caught a glimpse of Marcus. The young man's hands trembled slightly, but it was not from fear. It was from relief. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he was witnessing justice take shape. "Your Honor," Benjamin said, addressing the judge, "given these new developments, I request an immediate dismissal of all charges against my client, Marcus Brown." The prosecution's case was built entirely on the testimony of a corrupt officer, and with this evidence of misconduct, it is clear that Marcus is innocent. The judge hesitated, clearly weighing the gravity of the situation. The court was abuzz with murmurs, and even Sarah Mitchell, the prosecutor, was left speechless, her previous confidence evaporating in the face of the FBI's intervention. Finally, after a long pause, the judge turned to Sarah. "Do you have any objections to the defense's motion?" Sarah opened her mouth, but no words came out. She appeared visibly shaken, realizing the futility of her position. After a moment, she simply shook her head. "No objections, Your Honor," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Benjamin felt a rush of relief wash over him, but he maintained his composure. The judge turned to the jury, his voice steady but firm. "In light of the new evidence and the charges against Officer Carter, the court finds the charges against Marcus Brown to be unfounded and unjust. The case is dismissed." Cheers erupted from the gallery, a wave of emotion sweeping through the room. Benjamin turned to Marcus, who was being unshackled from the defense table. The metal cuffs fell away with a soft clink, signifying not just the end of a trial, but the end of a nightmare for Marcus. Marcus looked down at his liberated hands, disbelief washing over his face. For a moment, he simply stared at them, as if trying to comprehend that he was truly free. Then slowly he turned to Benjamin, his expression a mixture of gratitude and astonishment. "I don't even know what to say," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "You don't have to say anything," Benjamin replied, placing a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "What matters is that justice has prevailed today, not because the system was designed to work, but because we fought for it." As Marcus stepped toward the gallery, his family rushed forward, tears of joy streaming down their faces. His mother enveloped him in a tight embrace, while his younger brother stood nearby, wide-eyed and speechless. The room buzzed with excitement. The atmosphere transformed from one of tension to one of celebration. Benjamin watched as the emotional reunion unfolded, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had fought hard for this moment, not just for Marcus, but for all those who had been wronged by a flawed system. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the fight wasn't over. As the FBI agents led Carter away in handcuffs, Benjamin turned to the courtroom, his expression resolute. "This is not just a victory for Marcus, it's a victory for everyone who has ever been silenced or wronged by those in power. We must continue to stand up against injustice and ensure that those who abuse their authority are held accountable." As the courtroom began to empty and the excitement of the moment lingered, Benjamin felt a renewed sense of purpose. If you're inspired by this story of resilience and justice, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more powerful narratives from Flourishing Tales. As the courtroom began to clear, a sense of relief washed over Benjamin Wells. The weight of the trial had lifted, but the reality of the broader fight for justice still loomed large in his mind. He watched as Marcus Brown embraced his family, their tears of joy mingling with laughter, a poignant reminder of what had been at stake. This was a moment of triumph, but it also signaled a deeper struggle that continued beyond the courtroom walls. As the spectators filed out, Benjamin felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Sarah Mitchell, the prosecutor, approaching him with an expression of exhaustion etched on her face. "Benjamin," She began hesitantly. "I didn't expect things to unfold like this. I thought we had a solid case." Sarah. Benjamin regarded her with a mix of empathy and understanding. "It's easy to get caught up in the system, Sarah. Sometimes we lose sight of the real impact our actions have on people's lives." He paused, reflecting on his own journey from prosecutor to defense attorney. "It's crucial to remember that justice should be about truth, not just winning cases." Sarah nodded, her demeanor softening. "I know. I've seen it happen too many times, and yet I still got swept up in the drive to secure a conviction. I didn't realize how much I was contributing to the problem." "Recognizing that is the first step," Benjamin replied. "The system is flawed, and it's up to us to challenge it. We need more people willing to stand up for the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." Just then, the FBI agents re-entered the courtroom, their demeanor professional but slightly less rigid now that Carter had been led away. One of the agents, a tall man with sharp features, approached Benjamin. "Mr. Wells, I wanted to commend you on your work today. You've done a remarkable job exposing the truth."
"Thank you," Benjamin replied, appreciating the acknowledgement. "But this isn't just my victory. It's a collective effort. We need to hold officers accountable and ensure that justice is accessible for everyone."
The agent nodded, his expression serious. "We'll be launching a full investigation into Officer Carter's previous cases. We want to ensure that any wrongful convictions are addressed, including those that may have stemmed from his actions." Benjamin felt a surge of hope at the news. That's a start. There are so many lives affected by the decisions made in that courtroom. It's time to rectify those wrongs. As the agents left to continue their work, Benjamin turned back to Marcus, who had just stepped away from his family, his expression a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "I can't believe it's really over," Marcus said, his voice trembling slightly. "I was so sure I'd be going to prison for something I didn't do." "You fought hard for your freedom, Marcus," Benjamin replied, pride swelling in his chest. "You didn't let them take your voice or your dignity. That takes courage." Marcus looked down, his mind racing. "But how can I move forward after everything? I don't want to be defined by this experience." Benjamin placed a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You're not defined by what happened to you, you're defined by how you respond to it. Use this experience to advocate for others who find themselves in similar situations. Your voice matters, and it can help create change." As they spoke, the courtroom buzzed with the aftermath of the trial. Reporters rushed in, eager to capture the story of the day, while onlookers whispered excitedly about the dramatic turn of events. Benjamin knew that this case would resonate far beyond the walls of the courthouse. "Just remember, the fight isn't over," he said to Marcus. "There are countless individuals still struggling against a broken system. You have the chance to be a beacon of hope for them." Marcus nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. "I want to help. I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Benjamin smiled, recognizing the fire that had been ignited within Marcus. "That's the spirit. Change starts with people like you who refuse to be silent." As they walked out of the courtroom together, the sunlight flooded in, illuminating their path forward. For the first time in what felt like ages, Marcus allowed himself to breathe deeply, the weight of fear and anxiety lifting from his shoulders. He had faced the unthinkable and emerged victorious, but he also understood the importance of using his newfound freedom for good. Outside in the bustling streets, Benjamin and Marcus paused to take in the moment. They were greeted by the cheers of supporters who had gathered to celebrate the verdict. The air was filled with a sense of hope and unity, a testament to the power of standing up for what is right. As Benjamin prepared to leave, he turned to Marcus one last time. "If you ever need support or guidance as you navigate this new chapter, don't hesitate to reach out. You're not alone in this fight." "Thank you, Benjamin," Marcus said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'll remember that. This is just the beginning for me." With a final nod, Benjamin stepped away, his heart full of hope. He knew that this case was just one small victory in a long battle for justice, but it was a crucial step toward change. As he walked away from the courthouse, he couldn't help but reflect on the impact of their work. Every voice, every story mattered, and together they could create a ripple effect that would challenge the status quo. If today had taught him anything, it was that justice was not merely a concept, it was a collective responsibility. If you're inspired by Marcus's journey and the fight for justice, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for more powerful stories from Flourishing Tales.